How's it going, YouTube? Got FourthStarTCG here, and I am back with yet another Guardians Rising deck video. Today we are going over possibly the best deck to come out of Guardians Rising, and what probably is challenging right now for the best deck in the format. It is, as I'm sure you know already, Tapu Lele, Garbodor, Tauros, other attackers. This list has been doing fantastically. So many people are so hyped about this list. We haven't had any sort of major tournament yet to show whether it can overcome Decidueye Vileplume as the best deck in the format right now, but it is possibly the most hyped deck to come out of Guardians Rising. People initially sort of slept on Garbodor, but now they're realizing how ridiculously good it is. So let's get right into this deck profile. We are running a 4-3 Trubbish Garbodor line, of course, 3 copies of the Trashalanche Garbodor. This is the main attack we are going to be using. For a single Psychic Energy, it does 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile, and this is ridiculous. It's so overpowered. People play so many item cards these days that we can easily hit 180, 200 damage, if not more. The amount of, it's just ridiculous. We see how many item cards we play in our list, and other people play possibly even more. Stuff like Turbo Dark with Max Elixirs, got 4 of those in every list. Ultra Ball, 4 of that in every list. VS Seeker, 4 of that in every list. And Pokemon Tool cards, those are item cards too. Those are being played so much now that Garbodor is just such a good card. And we have, of course, 3 copies of Trashalanche, 1 copy of, completely removed our Garbotoxin Garbodor. But we will put that right back in. Alright. Oh goodness. I'm trying to click on it and it just won't work. Most professional video on YouTube, to quote Yellow Swallow. So Garbodor. Ability Garbotoxin. If the Pokemon has a Pokemon Tool card attached to it, each Pokemon in play, each player's hand, so we turn off all abilities, and this is really useful versus decks like Decidueye Vileplume and decks like Volcanion that really rely on abilities. So we've got our 4-3 Garbodor line. We are pairing this up with 2 copies of Tapu Lele GX. It's a fantastic new card. The ability Wonder Tag, when we play this Pokemon from our hand onto our bench, we can search our deck for a supporter card. The attack Energy Drive does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon, and its damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance. And Tapu Cure GX, we get to heal all damage from 2 of our benched Pokemon. We can actually use this in this deck list as we do play Psychic Energy, so that's important to note. Now we're pairing up Tauros GX in this list because we play 4 copies of DCE, so really no need not to play Tauros GX. Just a wonderful attacker. You can choose whichever attack you want for a double colorless. Rage does 20 plus 10 for each damage counter on Tauros. Horn Attack does 60, and Mad Bull GX does 30 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So people are always afraid to hit into your Tauros GX for fear of that massive Mad Bull GX knocking them out. We also play 1 copy of Lugia EX. You might be saying, why do you play Lugia EX? Tapu Lele does the exact same thing, but Lugia has Deep Hurricane for 2 double colorless. The attack does 80 damage plus 70 more damage if there's a Stadium card in play. There most often is a Stadium card in play. So we're hitting for 150. If we throw a Choice Band on and we're up against a Pokemon EX or GX, that's 180. This is just such a lovely attack. It's really nice because it's sort of what I call guaranteed damage. Most of our deck is reliant on our opponent, which I don't really like. Garbodor is reliant on your opponent playing item cards. They can simply not do that. Of course, their deck will be super slow, and we'll get to charge up all of our other Pokemon, but that's why you can't just play a Garbodor list. Tapu Lele really doesn't do much damage unless your opponent has a lot of energy attached to them, so it's again reliant on your opponent. Tauros GX is reliant on your opponent attacking into Tauros, which they can simply not do, or Lysander around it, which isn't too difficult. So Lugia EX, again, I really like it just because of that second Deep Hurricane attack. If we need to, it provides a lot of extra damage for us, and it's something that's guaranteed. We don't have to rely on our opponent doing things in order to get that damage. We also play just one copy of Shaman EX. I found that one copy is perfectly fine in this deck list, as we play 2 copies of Tapu Lele, which allow us to search for a supporter card, so it's not difficult to find those supporters, get that draw power with only 1 copy of Shaman. Now into our items, we play 1 copy of Enhanced Hammer, pretty nice just to slow down any decks that play special energy. We play 1 copy of Escape Rope, play a couple switching cards in this list just because our Garbodor has a 3 retreat cost, our Tauros has a 3 retreat cost, our Lugia has a 2 retreat cost, so we just want to have ways to get out of the active if possible. We play 2 copies of Field Blower. This is a lovely card in this deck list. I really like it because we can remove 2 in any combination of Pokemon, Tool, and Stadium cards in play. This allows us to get rid of our opponent's tools, which has been long wanted in this format, and it also powers up our Trashalanche attack, as Pokemon Tool cards are item cards. So if your opponent has 2 Tool cards down, you play a Field Blower, your Trashalanche is up by 40. So 2 copies of that, just in case one is prized or we have to discard it early. Very important. I wouldn't play less than 2 Field Blower in this list. We play 1 copy of Super Rod. We shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards back into our deck. Very nice, just for recovery. 1 copy of Switch. Again, switching cards. If our Garbodor gets stuck in the active and we really don't want to... it's really not an issue if a Garbodor gets stuck in the active, because it just takes 1 energy to attack, but if they strand something like this Garbodor, it could be an issue if you had to put down a choice band on it to shut down abilities versus ability reliant deck. 4 copies of Trainer's Mail helps us grab out all of those cards that we need. 4 copies of Ultra Ball allows us to search out a Pokemon. 4 copies of VS Seeker allows us to get our supporters back. We play 2 copies of Altar of the Moon. This is a new Stadium card from Guardians Rising that if we have any Psychic or Darkness energy attached, our retreat cost is 2 colorless less, and this is wonderful because it allows this deck to be a lot more mobile. Garbodor with a Psychic energy attached can now retreat for only 1. Tapu Lele with a Psychic energy attached, free retreat. Tauros with a Psychic energy attached, only 1 retreat cost. Lugia, retreat for free. Just really, really nice Stadium. We also play 1 copy of Parallel City, great for the Mega Rayquaza matchup, and just any other deck like Rainbow Road that really requires a large bench. We play 2 copies of Delinquent. This is really nice, especially with Tapu Lele. We search out our Delinquent with Tapu Lele or VS Seeker, and it forces our opponent to discard cards from their hand if there's a Stadium card in play. Usually you would only play this card when your opponent has maybe 4 or 3 cards in their hand, but in this list it's not a bad card to play at any time, just because it forces your opponent to discard those cards that you need to power up your Trashalanche. 2 copies of Lysander, fairly useful just to bring something up from the bench. 2 copies of N. I really don't think 3 is needed in this list because of our 3 sort of draw cards in Tapu Lele and Shaman. 1 copy of Professor Kukui, just add some extra damage and draw some cards, a very nice card in this list. 4 copies of Professor Sycamore, again standard. Our tool card of choice is the new Choice Band. If we attach it to one of our Pokemon, we do 30 more damage to our active Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX, very useful. 2 copies of Floatstone, great for our Garbotoxin Garbodor. If our stadiums get bumped for some reason, we can throw those Floatstones down on Lugia or Tauros or Tapu Lele or something. We don't have to discard the energy to retreat. And last but not least, our energy. We play 4 double colorless energy and 6 psychic energy. So there we go. That is the deck list. Yes, we want to discard because we just changed our Garbodor. So we are going to get some matches with this. This is, again, as I said, one of the best decks in the format, so I'm really hoping to pick up some wins here. Show off the power of the Guardians Rising Garbodor. So we are going to go first, and we pull no basic Pokemon, and we can see what our opponent is. We're playing the mirror. Wow, Garbodor is everywhere on the ladder right now. It's really really a big card. So in the mirror matchup, it's basically who can pick up the Lysanders on the opponent's benched EX or GX. I don't think Garbodor really plays any EX cards, but, well, Shaman, but so we saw fighting in this list. That would be interesting to see what that fighting card is. So we'll see what my opponent starts with here. Usually you want to start with something like Tauros or Lugia, even Tapu Lele, in order to sort of chip away at your opponent while they use item cards and power your attacks up. Ultra Ball, that is nice. So it allows us to get out our, let's see, we'll drop the Lysander and we will drop the Super Rod. We're going to need a Tapu Lele GX. We'll use our Wonder Tag here and we'll search for an N. I think that's best. Alright, so that's a pretty good hand. I wish we had an Altar of the Moon so we could retreat for free. Yeah, we're just going to escape rope here and end our turn. As we see the energy come down here onto the bench Trubbish, and my opponent really can't do anything that turn, which is interesting. So that being said, I'm going to Tapu Lele for a Delinquent. No, I can't because we don't have a Stadium card in play, so good thing that I recognize that. What can I grab? I can grab another N. I think that's the best thing we can do. We're going to throw down the DCE here. And again, I know it's refreshing my opponent's hand, but there's really not much we can do. We don't want to play all of our item cards, so we didn't get a Garbodor, which really stinks. But we're just going to hit this for 40 damage here. And see what my opponent can do. We have 4 item cards in the discard pile, so they're really only hitting us for 80 damage. As we see my opponent drop 2 supporters. Grabbing a Tapu Lele. Going to Wonder Tag here for an Olympia. Do they not play Altar of the Moon then? Or they're just going to try to get it into their discard pile, I assume. Interesting. And we see a Floatstone come down onto the Trubbish, and out comes the Garbodor. Trashalanche hitting us for 80 damage. And we see this Garbodor come out, but that's not really not the Garbodor we want. Our opponent has only played 2 item cards. So I'm going to Parallel City here. Lock my opponent's bench size at 3, and we are going to Lysander out this benched Trubbish, and take a knockout on it. I feel like that's really all we can do this turn. I mean, I could hit the Garbodor for 60, but I really don't see the need in doing that. Okay, so we see the choice band coming down, so this is going to knock us out this turn, which really stinks. Yeah, because I was kind of hoping that he wouldn't be able to find the choice band, and since we didn't play any more item cards, he'd still be stuck at 80 damage. But he is going to Tapu Lele again. He's using more item cards, so now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the discard pile, so our Trash Lanch is doing 80. And he is going to find the Delinquent here. And this really isn't an issue for us. We'll just drop 3 random cards. And Trash Lanch will knock us out, unfortunately. And we are going to throw up our Trubbish. That DCE draw is pretty annoying, because our Tapu Lele, we need something like a Tauros here. In order to do some damage, and we get nothing. So out comes our Garbodor. We'll throw down the Psychic Energy here, and we are going to Trash Lanch ourselves. We're going to knock out this Garbodor, which is nice, and we draw a Shaman. But again, we can just be knocked out ourselves next turn if my opponent draws into a Garbodor, and they have the Rescue Stretcher, so they are most likely going to knock us out this turn. Playing the mirror is so difficult because you really have to modulate which item cards you play and when. Not that we drew into the item cards that we needed, like Ultra Ball. So we see a Sycamore for my opponent. Throwing down a DCE onto that Tapu Lele, and they're going to Trash Lanch for knockout. So we're going to Enhanced Hammer here, get rid of that energy, throw down our Tauros. What are we doing? They're doing 140 right now, 160. Choice Band. Man. Our best hope here is to Lysander stall, I think. So we're going to Lysander out this Tapu Lele here. Shaman, hopefully we draw into a DCE. Unfortunately we do not. There's not much I can do other than just attach and retreat into this Tauros. Hoping my opponent doesn't find the stuff that they need in order to pick up the knockout, but I'm really not I'm not confident that we'll be able to pick up the win here. Our deck didn't really draw well, and my opponents did, so even though they are only up by 1 prize. I'm going to see the N here, which brings my opponent down to 3 cards and gives us a very nice hand. But it does get them the Garbodor. Does it get them the energy? No. So down goes 2 Trubbish here. I'm going to throw those down here and attach the DCE. And we are going to Horn Attack. So my opponent can Delinquent, but we don't have anything in our hand anyway. We really needed to put down a Trubbish, so we're going to see a Lysander onto the Shaman here. We'll just evolve into Garbodor here and wait it out. Both our Escape Rope and our Switch are down there, but we have only 3 Psychic Energy in play, so we got 3 left we can draw. I would have Lysandered to Trubbish, to be honest, but because my opponent didn't know I had the Garbodor in hand. But we're gonna see the energy come down. Wow, I would not have done that. I would have attached it here, retreated, and Trash-a-Lanche for knockout. But we don't pull an energy. Oh my goodness. That is really sad. Okay. So we're going to throw down a Choice Band here. We can throw down a Choice Band here. That's really all I want to do right now. Yeah. So we're just waiting. My opponent passes yet again. There's the DCE. How many item cards have we played? Because we don't want to just throw something up and have our opponent win with Trash-a-Lanche. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they're doing 200 damage. So we need to win with our Garbodors. Pretty much. Doesn't matter what I bench now. So they're knocking out everything in the field. So there's really not no point in. I wish I had waited and decided to Sycamore and hoped for our Floatstone before. But yeah, we're just gonna Sky Return here. Take this out of the active. We're gonna throw up this Trubbish, as we do have the Floatstone in hand, so unless our opponent ends us, we can come in and take the knockout with Trash-a-Lanche next turn. And we do have 2 VS Seekers left, so we can Lysander. The Choice Bands drop, which is painful. He's going to have to decide which to discard the Choice Bands from. I'd probably leave the Choice Band on the Tapu Lele, yeah. So we are going to come in with our Garbodor. And we are going to Delinquent. Get rid of my opponent's entire hand here. And stop them from, hopefully stop them from retreating easier. We're going to Trash-a-Lanche, doing 180. This Garbodor can come in, but hopefully we pull either some sort. We got the 2 Trainer's Mail for VS Seeker. I'm hoping that, I think one of our Trash-a-Lanche Garbodors was prized. But we are going to throw up this with the... Okay, so there's our VS Seeker. How many Ultra Balls have we played? 2, 3. Well, it doesn't matter what we play anyway. We can search the last 2 cards of our deck. There is the Ultra Ball, so I believe we have this game. That was a very, very... Okay, before I get ahead of myself, let's drop this Shaman and this Professor Kukui. Yeah, so our last Garbodor is prized. unfortunately. So I was ahead of myself, right? Yeah. So we prized our last Garbodor. Can we still win this? We can... what? 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. This is our best hope right here. Is to VS Seeker for Lysander. Lysander out the Tapu Lele. Attach an energy, retreat, and energy drive. So we do 130 because, yeah, so now we're just, our opponent can just retreat and win the game here. So there's really just like, we were so close. If our last Garbodor wasn't prized, we would have won. We had all the cards we needed, but yeah. So yeah, my opponent's just going to retreat and pick up the win with Trashalanche. It was very close. It was very close, I have to say. It was a lot closer than I thought it would be. But that's a very interesting mirror match to see right there. And we will pick up one more here. Yeah, that was quite an interesting mirror match. Again, if our last Garbodor wasn't prized, we probably would have picked up the win. But unfortunately it was. I think that game was so long that I must have initially forgotten, but of course looking through the deck with only 2 cards left, we saw that it was prized. And we start with no basic Pokemon. So we'll take our mulligan here. And there we go, that's a nice start. So this is usually what we want to start with. Tauros active, Trubbish down on the bench. As we see Talonflame. So this is probably Greninja Break. So pretty nice. I'm going to throw down the Float Stone on the Trubbish. Going to Ultra Ball away our Escape Rope and our Lysander here. We'll just get out yet another Trubbish. We'll throw that down. We will Tapu Lele, probably for something like a Delinquent. Yeah, I think Delinquent is best. Just so we can have it in the discard pile and access it with our VS Seekers. Unfortunately, we do not get an energy. Yeah, I want the Ultra Ball. I want to have access to a Pokemon for next turn. My opponent didn't get down an energy either, so I'm not hurting too much. But that does really stink that we were not able to find an energy, as my opponent is stuck here. So now we are able to find the energy. I'm going to throw it down here. I'm going to throw down this Trubbish as well. I'm going to get rid of Parallel City and Kukui, I think. Grab out our Garbotoxin Garbodor, as we really want to stop these abilities as soon as possible. I'm going to throw down our Ultra of the Moon, no reason not to here, and Sycamore, as we can evolve into this Garbodor here. And that's probably it for this turn. Still waiting to find our second float stone, as our opponent is really stuck. I'm not going to end. I know my opponent is ridiculously stuck, so I'm hoping they find something just to make this an interesting match. Energy, something for Aero Blitz, yeah, so they finally grab the energy and the Aero Blitz. So they grab 2 cards, they have a massive hand. We're probably going to end them here. I'll throw down this energy onto the bench Trubbish, and we will throw down the N. No tool card, unfortunately. But we will evolve into Garbodor again, and we will Hornet. I could Mad Bull GX and just knock this out. I honestly think that's our best play, to get rid of this Talonflame right now before it can search for anything else. So I am going to Mad Bull GX and knock this out. Because if our opponent can't get down something like Frogadier, Energy Water duplicates this turn. So, plus in order to do all of that stuff, they're going to need energy. We see the Bursting Balloon here, and water duplicates. I don't mind the Bursting Balloon. Do not mind it at all, as we have our Lysander here. Now what do we do? We'll Trainer Mail first. Find the Field Blower. We'll throw the Float Stone down on our Garbodor, shutting off all abilities, pretty much rendering this Greninja deck useless. So yeah, we're going to get rid of that. We'll throw this energy down onto our Tapu Lele. We'll Delinquent to discard cards from our opponent's hand, make it even more difficult for them to play. I know they do have 4 cards in hand, but they did have to drop 2 water energy, and they only have 2 item cards in the discard pile, so we can just Rage for 60 damage here. We don't pick up the knockout, 10 damage short, unfortunately. And my opponent does have the N. But having our Garbodor out is a big help for us right here, as we see a second energy get attached. And a Moonlight Slash, doing 80 damage. Going to throw yet another energy down onto this Tapu Lele here. Again, my opponent only 2 item cards in the discard pile, but we are going to be able to Rage for the knockout. Our opponent does get all those cards back, but we are slowly powering up all of our Pokemon. You can see the Rough Seas coming down from my opponent. VS Seeker for N. So we do grab another DCE, which is nice. Opponent has 10 cards in the discard pile and only 3 of them are item cards. So they're playing this matchup very well. They decide not to return the energy to their hand. I'm going to throw this Garbodor out just as it has a float stone. We're going to throw our Tauros back into the deck here. We're going to throw this energy down on Tapu Lele. I'm not going to throw down the because it's going to be a 2-hit KO no matter what I use. They do have the Rough Seas to heal damage, but I can throw down the DCE next turn if I have to. Additionally, they really have to do something to this. Yeah, so now we see some stuff come down. Now only 4 item cards, so we're hitting 80 damage with our Garbodor. Now 100 with the Dive Ball. But my opponent really needs to knock out this Garbodor if they want to do anything here. As we're going to see the Moonlight Slash come out here, do 80 damage. Really hoping for a draw supporter here. Unfortunately not, but we do have the Lysander. So you are going to be able to Lysander out this Greninja right here and Trashalanche for the knockout. Doing 100 damage and going down to 3 prize cards. We also pick up the Enhanced Hammer, which would be interesting if they do decide to play down a Splash Energy. That Bursting Balloon going down powers up our Trashalanche even more. So, we are kind of stuck. We haven't gotten a draw supporter soon. But since we were able to power up 2 Garbodors, I think it's going to be fairly difficult for my opponent to bring this matchup back. We see 6 item cards in the discard pile now. Make that 7 with Ultra Ball. So we are hitting 140 right now. And my opponent needs to take out this benched Garbodor if they're going to do anything. You also have 3 Choice Bands, so if they do play Field Blower, then you see the Sycamore here. Yeah, and there's the Field Blower for my opponent finally. But that also gives us our Shaman, which is nice. We see the Bursting Balloon come down. And we've used one of our Field Blowers, so. Unfortunately, both of our Float Stones are down, but no. So we see the giant Water Shuriken come out. I assume attacking into this Garbodor here. I would assume they'd want to take prizes first. I don't know if they would play more than one Field Blower. Going for the bench Tapu Lele, interesting. And choosing not to knock out anything this turn, which, again, I find very interesting. So we're going to throw down the Trubbish. Actually, no, we're just going to Shaman here. We're really going to hope to draw something like an Ultra Ball to find our... yeah. That's unfortunate because we've already lost 1 DCE, but looks like we're going to have to lose another one. We're going to have to drop all of this, as we do have our Tauros. We don't find a Pokemon tool card for our... Yeah, we don't find a Pokemon tool card, which is painful. My opponent's going to be able to knock us out anyways next turn. So we'll Trash-a-Lanche for 180 and pick up the knockout. We will get knocked out ourselves, but we pull a useless Choice Band, but that's actually fairly nice, as we can use it against our throw out this Garbodor. We can use it on our benched Garbodor to shut down abilities. I threw out Garbodor instead of Tauros because Garbodor can pick up a knockout right away. And it sort of forces my opponent to Giant Water Shuriken into this Garbodor and attack it and not take the prizes from Tapu Lele. As my opponent does have only 3 prizes left, so I have to be aware of that, as they can Giant Water Shuriken the Tapu Lele. And yeah, so this is what I wanted them to do. I wanted them to attack into this Garbodor here. As we see the VS Seeker. For Fisherman. Okay. Pulling a lot of energy cards out of the discard. Or only 2. Do they only have 2 energy in the discard? Wow, yeah. So they're going to be able to Moonlight Slash and pick up the knockout here on this Garbodor. And we're going to throw our Tauros up here. As we can throw down the Choice Band, which will make things more difficult for my opponent. All of our Trash-a-Lanche Garbodors have been used. So, how do I do this? Have I used my Parallel City? Yes. So there's no way I can get this Tapu Lele off the bench. I'm going to end here. I'm going to end my opponent down to 2. I feel like this is just the best play for me to do right here. And we can Horn Attack for 60. My opponent does not have abilities, so I'm really hoping that it's going to be difficult for them to find what they need. And we can 3-hit KO them here. I assume this list does not play Lysander. Most lists do not. So, we're just waiting here, seeing what my opponent can do. If they can pick up the win, they need something like Field Blower plus Energy. I can see Greninja playing 2 copies of Field Blower. As we have the energy here, if they attack into us with anything other than... if they attack and return the energy, we knock them out with Rage. So they need to be careful of that. I believe we knock them out with Rage. 110. So if they do 80 to us, we hit 100. Not enough. So close. So we see Moonlight Slash with the energy getting returned, doing 80 damage. And we do see the VS Seeker here. I can Delinquent, which gets rid of an energy. I think that is the best play right here. We're going to lose our stadium, but my opponent loses 3 cards from their hand, including the energy that they just returned. So they lose 2 energy. So we're going to Rage for 100 here. Just 10 damage short of picking up the knockout. And they draw a Froakie, so I think that is game for us. Clutch Delinquent there. They go into the Froakie just to try to conserve something, but I think it's not going to be enough. We're going to Rage for the knockout here, as we do need to take 2 prizes, so it doesn't really matter which 2 Pokemon I knock out in the end, as my opponent needs to draw something like a Sycamore here. As they play Silent Lab. That was close. Well played. Well played to my opponent. We're going to Rage for the knockout and pick up the win here against Greninja. Something that you'd think Garbodor would be favored to win, but with Field Blower, that new card, Greninja can make a comeback. So, 2 great games. I think these were fantastic games showing off the both power and sort of how the mirror matchup can work for Garbodor Tapu Lele. So thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for more Guardians Rising deck videos.